Danielle Carter believed in structure, schedules, order, boundaries. That was how she survived working in the upper floors of power, where men made billion-dollar decisions before lunch and destroyed reputations before dinner. When she was hired as executive secretary to Min-hyuk, she expected difficulty. She did not expect intensity. The first time she saw him in person, she understood why the board called him the ice strategist. He didn't smile unnecessarily. He didn't waste words. He didn't look at people twice. Except her. That was the problem. Her first week passed in controlled professionalism. She learned his schedule, memoized his preferences, adjusted to his rhythm. He liked his coffee black. No sugar. No small talk. He preferred meetings sharp on the hour, never 10:05, never 9:58. He noticed everything, including the way Danielle never trembled under pressure. That intrigued him. Most people avoided his gaze. She held it. Not challengingly. Just steadily. The shift began on a quiet Thursday evening. The office had thinned out. The city lights flickered beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, soul glowing like scattered diamonds below. Danielle entered his office with a stack of contracts needing his signature. "Sir, the Tokyo acquisition documents." He didn't look up immediately. "Leave them." She stepped closer to place them on his desk. That was when it happened. Their fingers brushed. It was accidental. Brief. But the air changed. His hand stilled over the paper. Danielle felt it too, that strange current, like something unspoken had suddenly taken form. She pulled her hand back first. Professional. Controlled. Min-hyuk slowly leaned back in his chair. He studied her. Not as a CEO evaluating staff. As a man trying to understand a threat. "Danielle," he said quietly. The way he said her name made her pulse shift. "Yes, sir." There was a pause. Heavy, deliberate. "You should request a transfer." Her brows knit slightly. "Have I made a mistake?" "No." His jaw tightened. "That's the problem." The room felt smaller. She didn't move. "Then why would I transfer?" she asked calmly. His eyes darkened, not with anger. With restraint. "Because I can't control myself around you." Silence. The hum of the city below seemed louder. Danielle blinked, unsure she had heard correctly. "Sir." He stood. Slowly. He wasn't towering in an aggressive way, but his presence filled space effortlessly. "I don't mix business with emotion," he continued, voice low and steady. "It weakens judgment." "And you believe I would weaken yours?" she asked. He took one step closer. Close enough that she could smell the faint scent of cedar and something sharper, something expensive and masculine. "I believe," he said carefully, "that when you stand this close, I forget what I'm supposed to prioritize." Her breath caught, but she refused to step back. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not boldly. Not honestly. She expected arrogance. Instead, she saw conflict. Real conflict. He wasn't flirting. He was warning her. "I won't act unprofessionally," he added. "That's why you should leave." Danielle's heart pounded, but her voice remained calm. "I was hired for my competence. Not your comfort." A flicker of something dangerous passed through his eyes. Admiration. Challenge. Desire. He exhaled slowly. "That confidence," he murmured, almost to himself. "That's exactly why this is dangerous." Neither of them moved. Neither looked away. For the first time in years, Min-hyuk felt something unfamiliar. Not attraction alone. Not curiosity. Temptation. And Danielle felt it too, the sense that a door had opened. A door that should remain closed. After a long moment, she straightened the files neatly on his desk. "If you want me transferred, submit the request yourself," she said gently. "Until then, I'll continue doing my job." She turned to leave. His voice stopped her at the door. "Danielle." She paused but didn't turn. "Yes." There was a weight to his next words. "If I cross a line, it won't be because I didn't warn you." Her fingers tightened slightly around the door handle. Then she answered, steady and composed. "I don't scare easily, sir." And she walked out, leaving Min-hyuk alone in his office. Alone with something he had built empires avoiding. Loss of control. And for the first time in his carefully disciplined life, he wasn't sure he wanted to win this battle. After the warning, nothing changed. And that was the most dangerous part. Danielle still arrived at 7:45 a.m. sharp. Still wore tailored blouses and pencil skirts in muted colors. Still tied her hair back when preparing reports. Still knocked twice before entering. But something invisible had shifted between them. A current. Low. Constant. Unavoidable. Min-hyuk stopped looking at her casually. Now, when he looked at her, it was deliberate. Measured. As if calculating risk. And she felt it every time. The air in his office felt heavier these days. Thicker. Like oxygen itself had become aware of them. He began scheduling late-night reviews. At first, they were justified. International calls with New York. European investors. Singapore expansion plans. Danielle stayed because it was her job. But after the third late evening in 1 week, she began to wonder if proximity had become strategy. One night, just after 10:30 p.m., the building was nearly empty. Rain streaked down the glass walls. The city lights blurred into gold and white rivers below. Danielle stood beside his desk, tablet in hand, reviewing quarterly projections. Min-hyuk wasn't looking at the screen. He was looking at her reflection in the window. She tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. His jaw tightened. Focus. He forced his gaze to the data. You're distracted, she said softly without looking up. His pen stilled. I'm not. You've read the same paragraph 3 times. Silence. She slowly lifted her eyes to meet his. There it was again. That dangerous stillness. He stood up abruptly. The movement startled her slightly. He walked toward the window, loosening his tie just enough to breathe. You shouldn't stay this late, he said. You're the one who scheduled the meeting. His reflection met hers in the glass. That doesn't mean you should accept. Danielle tilted her head slightly. You're my employer. His gaze sharpened. And that's exactly why this is inappropriate. Her pulse fluttered. He turned fully this time, closing the distance between them with quiet, unhurried steps. Not aggressive, but intentional. Every step felt like a countdown. She didn't retreat. Not because she wasn't aware, but because retreat would admit something. He stopped a foot away. Too close for professionalism. Not close enough to touch. You don't understand what restraint costs, he said quietly. Her breath slowed. Then explain it to me. That was the wrong thing to say. His eyes darkened slightly. Restraint, he continued, voice lower now, is watching you walk into a room and pretending it doesn't change the temperature. Her fingers tightened slightly around her tablet. Restraint is knowing your perfume before you speak. Her lips parted, but no words came. Restraint, he finished, is standing this close and choosing not to touch you. The silence after that confession felt fragile. Breakable. Danielle's heart pounded so loudly she was certain he could hear it. You said you don't lose control, she whispered. I don't. Then why am I different? That question lingered between them. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, his gaze traced her face slowly, not disrespectfully, but intimately. Memoizing. You don't try to impress me, he said finally. You don't fear me. You don't chase what I have. His voice softened. You see me. That's dangerous. The rain intensified against the windows. Thunder rolled faintly in the distance. And then, the lights flickered. Once. Twice. Darkness swallowed the office. Danielle inhaled sharply. Instinctively, his hand reached for her waist. Firm. Protective. Possessive. Her body reacted before her mind did. She stepped closer, not away. In the darkness, without the sharp edges of power and titles, they felt like something else. Just two people standing in the storm. The emergency lights flickered on seconds later, dim, golden. His hand was still at her waist. Neither moved. His thumb flexed unconsciously against the curve of her side. The smallest movement. But it burned. He released her abruptly, stepping back as if he'd touched fire. This is exactly what I meant, he said, breath heavier now. Danielle swallowed. Then stop looking at me like that. Like what? Like I'm the only thing in the room. His jaw tightened. You are. The words came out before he could stop them. Silence. Thick. Dangerous. For the first time, Danielle felt something shift inside her too. Not fear. Not intimidation. Want. And that terrified her more than his warning ever could. The lights fully restored. Reality returned. Min-hyuk straightened his jacket, composure snapping back into place like armor. The car will take you home, he said formally. She nodded, but before leaving, She paused at the door. You don't have to fight this alone, she said quietly. He didn't look at her. That's the only way I know how. And when she walked out that night, both of them understood something undeniable. The line hadn't been crossed, but it was fading. And soon, restraint wouldn't be enough. The gala was supposed to be simple. Strategic networking, investor reassurance, public stability. Min-hyuk had attended dozens like it. He had never felt nervous before one. Until tonight. Danielle wasn't required to attend. But she did. As his executive secretary, she coordinated the event details, handled VIP confirmations, and ensured everything ran flawlessly. She told herself that was the only reason her pulse felt unstable while fastening the clasp of her necklace. It had nothing to do with him. Nothing to do with the way his eyes lingered lately. Nothing to do with the rain-soaked night in his office. When she entered the ballroom, conversations dimmed subtly. Not because she demanded attention, but because she carried herself with quiet, controlled elegance. Her dress was black silk. Minimalist. Long sleeves. A subtle open back. Refined. But devastating. Across the room, Min-hyuk saw her. And forgot the sentence he was speaking mid-conversation. His investor followed his gaze. Ah, the man chuckled softly. Now I understand why you've been distracted lately. Min-hyuk didn't respond. His jaw tightened. He didn't like the implication. He didn't like that others could see it. He especially didn't like that they were right. Danielle moved gracefully between guests, offering polite smiles, managing logistics, ensuring everything flowed smoothly. She avoided his eyes. She knew if she held his gaze tonight, it would be harder to pretend. Harder to breathe. Harder to remember who she was in this room. Just an employee. Just a secretary. Nothing more. And then it happened. A senior executive from a partner company approached her. Tall. Confident. A little too comfortable. You must be Danielle, he said warmly. I've heard about you. She smiled politely. I hope only good things. Oh, very impressive things, he replied, stepping closer than necessary. His hand settled lightly at the small of her back as he leaned in to speak over the music. It was harmless. Public. Socially acceptable. But across the room, Min-hyuk saw red. Not explosive anger. Something colder. More dangerous. Possession. He didn't think. He moved. Each step across the marble floor felt deliberate. Controlled. But inside, something was unraveling. He stopped beside them, voice smooth but firm. She's with me. The executive blinked in surprise. Danielle's heart skipped. With you, the man repeated. Min-hyuk's hand came to rest lightly, but unmistakably, at Danielle's waist. The exact place the other man's hand had been. Yes. The word carried weight. Claim. Finality. The executive laughed awkwardly and stepped away. Of course. My mistake. Danielle could feel the heat of Min-hyuk's palm through the silk of her dress. She turned slowly toward him. You didn't need to do that. Yes, I did. You're my employer. Not my. He leaned slightly closer. Not your what? Her breath faltered. He released her immediately, stepping back as if remembering where they were. Excuse us, he said calmly to nearby guests. Without waiting for permission, he guided her toward the corridor outside the ballroom. Not aggressively, but with unmistakable urgency. The hallway was quieter. Dim lighting. Soft carpet. Distant music muffled behind closed doors. He stopped walking. She nearly collided into him. This is exactly what I warned you about, he said, voice low. What? She demanded softly. Professional jealousy. That wasn't jealousy. It wasn't. His restraint cracked. It was restraint failing. Silence filled the corridor. He stepped closer. Not enough to trap her. Just enough that she felt surrounded by him. You don't get to stand there while another man touches you like that, he said quietly. Her eyes flashed. You don't get to decide who stands near me. His breathing deepened slightly. You're right. The admission surprised her. But don't pretend you didn't feel it too. The air shifted. Because she had. When Min-hyuk touched her waist in that ballroom, her body recognized him. Before her mind could argue. That's not the point, she whispered. Then what is? The point, she said, voice trembling just slightly now, is that you keep pushing me away and pulling me closer at the same time. That hit him. Harder than any accusation. He ran a hand through his hair, rare, unpolished frustration. I'm trying to protect you. From what? From me. The confession hung between them. Raw. Unfiltered. She stepped closer this time. Her move. Her choice. You're not a monster, Min-hyuk. His name on her lips, without title, shattered the last thread of composure. You don't know that, he whispered. Her hand slowly rose, resting lightly against his chest. Not seductive. Not provocative. Steady. His heartbeat was fast. Too fast for a man who built empires without blinking. You feel that, she murmured. He swallowed. Yes. That's not danger. It feels like losing control. Maybe control isn't what you need. Silence. 1 breath. 2. The space between them dissolved. His hand rose carefully, cupping her jaw as if asking permission without words. She didn't pull away. Didn't hesitate. Didn't look afraid. That was his final undoing. When he kissed her, it wasn't reckless. It wasn't rushed. It was restrained passion finally allowed to exist. Soft at first. Testing. Then deeper, not aggressive, but certain. Her fingers tightened slightly against his shirt. His hand slid to her waist again, this time without apology. Time disappeared. The hallway. The gala. The rules. All of it blurred. When they finally parted, their foreheads rested together. Breathing uneven. Changed. This shouldn't have happened, he said softly. But it did, she replied. And neither of them sounded regretful. In the distance, applause echoed from the ballroom. Life continuing. Unaware that something irreversible had just begun. He pulled back slightly, searching her face. No more warnings, he said quietly. Her heart pounded. No more fighting. His thumb brushed lightly along her jaw. No more pretending. And in that quiet corridor, beneath golden hotel lights and muffled music, the line wasn't just crossed. It was erased. The first mistake they made was thinking no one noticed. They were careful. No public displays at the office. No private meetings without doors open. No late-night exits together. But tension has a presence. And power circles smell change before it's announced. It started subtly. A board member lingering too long in Danielle's doorway. Whispers stopping when she walked past. A senior manager suddenly requesting direct access to Min-hyuk instead of going through her. Professional distance had returned, but the emotional current between them had not. And that was enough. One Monday morning, Min-hyuk was called into an informal strategy session. Which meant confrontation. The boardroom was cold. Minimal. Unforgiving. 7 men. 2 women. All shareholders. All calculating. Chairman Han leaned forward slightly. We've noticed adjustments in your behavior. Min-hyuk didn't blink. My behavior remains aligned with quarterly growth. That's not what we're referring to. A folder slid across the table. Photographs. The gala hallway. Blurry. Distant. But unmistakable. Him. Danielle. Too close. His jaw tightened. You had someone follow me. We protect the company, the chairman replied smoothly. Silence stretched. You built this empire on discipline, another board member added. Don't dismantle it over infatuation. Infatuation. The word irritated him more than it should have. This has no impact on performance, Min-hyuk said evenly. It will, the chairman replied. Perception becomes truth in markets. They leaned back as one. End it. It wasn't advice. It was expectation. Danielle felt it before she heard it. The shift. Min-hyuk became sharper. Colder in meetings. More formal with her. He stopped saying her name softly. Return to Ms. Carter. It stung more than she expected. One afternoon, she stepped into his office, closing the door behind her. You're avoiding me. I'm prioritizing the company. Don't hide behind that. His expression hardened. This isn't hiding. It's leadership. And what am I? She asked quietly. Silence. That silence hurt more than words. You're important, he finally said. Important enough to stand beside you? Or important enough to sacrifice? That hit. He stood, walking toward the window, creating distance. They are watching, he said. I don't care. I do. She moved closer. You warned me you couldn't control yourself. But this? Her voice softened. This feels like you controlling everything. He turned sharply. You think this is easy for me? I think you're choosing fear. The accusation lingered. Heavy. That night, the media struck. A business blog published an article. Billionaire CEO entangled with his secretary. Conflict of interest. Speculation exploded. Stock dipped slightly. Comment sections were cruel. Gold digger narratives. Power imbalance accusations. Danielle stared at the headlines on her phone in disbelief. Her name trending for all the wrong reasons. By morning, reporters waited outside the building. Inside, executives avoided her gaze. Min-hyuk called an emergency press briefing. The board expected denial, distancing, damage control. Instead, he stood behind the podium, composed as ever. There are no unethical practices within this company, he stated calmly. Ms. Carter is employed because of her competence. Are you involved with her? A reporter shouted. A pause. The board held its breath. Yes. The room erupted. Danielle, watching from his office monitor, felt her heart drop and soar at the same time. He hadn't hidden her, but he had just ignited a storm. The board meeting that followed was explosive. You've jeopardized investor confidence. You confirmed it publicly. This is reckless. Min-hyuk listened without raising his voice. I will not deny something that isn't shameful. And what happens when shareholders demand her removal? That question lingered. Because they would. They always did. Later that evening, Danielle sat alone at her desk. The office was nearly empty. The weight of whispers pressed on her chest. She had worked for everything she earned. Every promotion. Every accolade. Now her achievements were reduced to a rumor. Min-hyuk entered quietly. For once, he looked tired. Not physically. Emotionally. I'll restructure the department, he said. You'll report directly to legal for now. Distance. To protect me. To protect everything. She looked up at him. Do you regret it? His answer came instantly. No. Then why does it feel like I'm the only one paying for it? He stepped closer. You're not. Min-hyuk. I can handle rumors. I can handle pressure. What I can't handle is being hidden. His eyes softened. You're not hidden. I'm being relocated. That's strategy. That's fear. Silence fell again. Painful. Real. I built this company from nothing, he said quietly. I don't know how to build something I can't control. Her chest tightened. I'm not a company. That broke something in him. He reached for her hand, not as CEO. Not as authority. As a man. I don't want to lose you. Then stop acting like I'm a liability. The truth hovered between them. He was fighting the board, the media, the market. But the hardest battle was internal. Control versus surrender. Power versus love. And for the first time in his life, Min-hyuk wasn't sure which mattered more. The chapter ends not with a kiss. Not with passion. But with tension unresolved. Two people standing in the same room. Wanting each other. Choosing each other. But realizing that love at the top of an empire doesn't come without cost. And the real question now wasn't whether he could control himself. It was, would he choose her when control meant losing everything? The article didn't fade. It multiplied. Within 48 hours, major financial outlets picked it up. Panels debated corporate ethics. Commentators speculated about power imbalance. Stock analysts questioned Min-hyuk's emotional decision-making. Danielle stopped reading after the third headline that reduced her to a stereotype. She had degrees, experience, years of strategy behind her calm exterior. But the world saw one thing. Secretary. Sleeping her way up. It burned. At the office, conversations quieted when she passed. Some employees offered polite sympathy. Others offered thinly disguised curiosity. One assistant whispered too loudly near the elevators, "Must be nice to get promoted like that." Danielle didn't respond. But that night, she cried for the first time since joining the company. Not because she was ashamed. Because she was exhausted. Min-hyuk fought in his own way. He doubled down on work. Secured 2 major deals within a week. Publicly outperformed expectations. He believed results would silence critics. He believed control would fix this. But he didn't see what was unraveling in front of him. 3 days later, the board issued a formal recommendation. Terminate the relationship or remove her from the company. Not as a suggestion. as leverage. Major investors were pressuring quietly. Min-hyuk read the document twice. His jaw tightened. Non-compliance may result in a vote of no confidence. The message was clear. Choose. That evening, Danielle stayed late to clear pending files. The office felt different, like it no longer belonged to her. She ran her fingers over the polished wood of her desk, memorizing it. Min-hyuk stepped out of his office and paused when he saw her still there. You should be home. I wanted to finish everything. The tone was calm. Too calm. He walked closer. You don't need to prove anything. She smiled faintly. That's exactly the problem. He sensed it then. The shift. What are you saying? She stood, smoothing her blouse, professional even now. I'm saying I won't be the reason they question your leadership. They question it because they fear what they can't control. And I won't become their weapon. Silence. Dangerous silence. He understood before she said it. No. Her eyes softened, but didn't waver. I submitted my resignation this afternoon. The words hit harder than any board ultimatum. You did what? I won't let them vote you out because of me. His voice lowered, dangerously quiet. You think I would let them? You can't fight everyone, Min-hyuk. Watch me. Her chest tightened at that. But she shook her head. You built this from nothing. Thousands of employees depend on you. And I depend on you. The confession cracked the room open. She swallowed. That's not how this should work. He stepped closer. Then how should it work? I want someone who chooses me without calculating the cost. He flinched. Because she was right. He had been calculating. Market impact. Investor reactions. Strategic timing. Even his public confirmation had been measured. I stood in front of the media and claimed you, he said. Yes, she whispered. But you're still fighting yourself. That cut deeper than the headlines. He reached for her. She let him hold her hands. For a moment, the world outside disappeared. I love you, he said. The first time. Not restrained. Not strategic. Raw. Her eyes filled. I know. Not I love you too. Just I know. And that hurt more. Then don't leave. If I stay, she whispered, I become the reason they doubt you. If I go, you remain untouchable. I don't want to be untouchable. But you are. Silence stretched between them. Heavy. Sacred. Painful. She gently pulled her hands from his. I don't want to spend my life wondering if you would have chosen me if it cost you everything. He stepped forward instinctively. Danielle. She shook her head. If you ever choose me, I want it to be without fear. Without calculation. Without a boardroom watching. Her voice trembled slightly now. I won't compete with your empire. You're not competing. It feels like I am. That was the truth neither of them wanted to admit. For the first time in his life, Min-hyuk felt something stronger than ambition. Helplessness. She walked toward her desk one last time and picked up a small envelope. I left a letter in your office, she said softly. Not as your employee. He didn't open it. He couldn't. Because if he did, he might beg. And begging meant losing the last piece of control he was clinging to. She walked toward the elevator. Each step echoed. He didn't follow immediately. Because he was still waiting. Waiting for instinct to tell him what to protect. The company? Or her? The elevator doors opened. She stepped inside. She looked at him one final time. Not angry. Not bitter. Just loving. The doors closed. And for the first time since building his empire, Min-hyuk felt completely powerless. Later that night, alone in his office, he opened the envelope. Her handwriting was steady. You warned me you couldn't control yourself around me. But I need someone who doesn't see loving me as losing control. If you ever come to me, come without hesitation. No accusations. No blame. Just truth. He folded the letter carefully. And for the first time, he didn't think about shareholders. He didn't think about headlines. He thought about the elevator doors closing. And how he hadn't moved. This is the turning point. Now the question becomes, will he choose power? Or will he finally surrender it? 3 months without Danielle felt longer than the 10 years Min-hyuk spent building his empire. The office was quieter. Not in sound, in presence. No steady knock at 7:45 a.m. No calm voice organizing chaos. No subtle strength grounding him. Her desk had been reassigned. He hated that. It felt like erasing history. The company recovered quickly. Stocks stabilized. The board relaxed. The scandal faded into newer headlines. From the outside, everything looked intact. Inside, nothing was. Min-hyuk worked harder than ever. But productivity felt mechanical. Victories felt hollow. At night, he found himself rereading her resignation letter. Not because he didn't remember it, but because he was trying to understand it. Come without hesitation. He had faced hostile takeovers, government negotiations, corporate sabotage. He had never hesitated in war. But with love, he calculated. And that realization unsettled him more than any market crash ever could. One evening, his legal advisor entered his office quietly. "You should see this." A tablet slid across his desk. Danielle's name filled the screen. An article. Former executive secretary launches independent strategy consultancy. He read quickly. She had secured 2 mid-level tech clients already. Her statement was concise. Competence speaks louder than controversy. His chest tightened. She hadn't hidden. She hadn't disappeared. She built something. On her own. Without his protection. Without his shadow. And she was succeeding. Not because of him. But despite him. That night, Min-hyuk didn't stay in the office. He drove. No driver. No security convoy. Just him. The city lights blurred past the windshield. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about risk. He wasn't drafting strategy. He wasn't weighing outcomes. He was feeling. And the feeling was simple. He missed her. Not as convenience. Not as attachment. As partner. As equal. As the only person who ever stood in front of him without wanting something. Danielle's new office was modest compared to his tower. Clean. Minimal. Functional. She was still inside when he arrived. Working late. Of course she was. He stood outside her door for a long moment. No board. No cameras. No shareholders. Just a man who finally understood what fear had cost him. He knocked. She looked up. And froze. For a second, neither of them moved. He wasn't wearing his usual armor. No tailored overcoat. No perfectly composed expression. Just a simple dark shirt, sleeves slightly rolled. Human. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly. "I know." But he didn't leave. She stood slowly. "You said if you ever came to me." Her voice faltered slightly. "Come without hesitation," he finished. He stepped inside. Closed the door gently behind him. No urgency. No dominance. Just intention. "I've spent 3 months thinking about control," he began. "About power. About what it means to protect something." She didn't interrupt. "For years, I believed leadership meant never appearing vulnerable." His voice softened. "But I realize now, vulnerability isn't weakness. It's choice." She crossed her arms, not defensively. Guardedly. "And what are you choosing?" He took a breath. Not strategic. Not rehearsed. Real. "I'm choosing you." The words hung in the room. Unshielded. "You already chose the company," she replied quietly. "Yes." The honesty startled her. "I did." He stepped closer, but left space between them. "I chose stability, reputation, structure, because that's all I've ever known. And now? Now I know that control without connection feels empty." Silence. "You don't need to give up your empire," she said carefully. "I'm not." He shook his head. "I'm changing how I lead it." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "The board." "I've restructured voting power." That caught her attention. "I redistributed majority control into a trust structure. They can question me. They can advise me. But they can't threaten my position because of who I love." Her breath caught. "You did that, for me." "I did that because I was tired of living like everything in my life was negotiable." He stepped closer now. Not imposing. Steady. "You are not a liability. You are not an emotional risk. You are not a weakness to manage." His voice dropped. "You are the one person I don't want to strategize." Her composure cracked slightly. "Min-hyuk. I'm not here to ask you to return as my secretary." "Good." A faint, almost broken smile touched his lips. "I'm here because I don't want you beneath me in title. Or behind me in shadow? He reached into his pocket and placed a document on her desk. She glanced down. A proposal. Joint venture. A new strategic division, co-led. Equal equity. Independent authority. Her name beside his. You built this, she whispered. Yes. For the company. For us. Silence filled the space again, but it felt different this time. Not heavy. Hopeful. You once asked if I would choose you without calculating the cost, he said quietly. Her eyes met his. I'm not calculating anymore. He closed the distance fully now. Still not touching. Danielle, I love you. Not as distraction. Not as rebellion. Not as risk. His voice steadied. As my equal. As my future. Her breathing trembled. And if I say no? I walk away. No argument. No pressure. No retaliation. No leverage. That was the difference. He wasn't controlling the outcome. He was offering it. For the first time since they met. He wasn't trying to win. He was willing to lose. And that changed everything. She stepped closer. Slowly. Her hand lifted, resting lightly against his chest. His heartbeat was steady this time. Not frantic. Grounded. You look different, she whispered. I am less afraid. He nodded slightly. Losing you scared me more than losing anything else. Her eyes softened. And if this becomes difficult again? It will, he said honestly. But I won't step back next time. Silence. Then finally, she closed the remaining distance. Not rushed. Not desperate. Certain. When she kissed him, it wasn't fire this time. It was decision. And when he wrapped his arms around her, it wasn't possession. It was partnership. No hiding. No warning. No control. Just choice. Outside her modest office, the city lights shimmered. Inside, two people who had nearly lost each other stood together again. Not because the world allowed it, but because they chose it. And this time, there was no hesitation. 1 year later, the same ballroom, the same marble floors, the same crystal chandeliers casting golden light across polished glass and tailored suits. But everything felt different. Because this time, they weren't hiding. The announcement had shaken the industry months earlier. A new strategic division launched under joint leadership. Not an assistant promoted quietly. Not a romantic favor disguised as opportunity. A fully independent executive role. Danielle Carter, co-director. Equal voting authority within the division. Equal equity. Equal voice. The board hadn't celebrated at first. But numbers silenced hesitation. Within 6 months, the division outperformed projections by 28%. Her leadership style was different from Min-hyuk's. Where he was surgical, she was intuitive. Where he calculated risk, she assessed people. Where he dominated a room, she steadied it. Investors began requesting meetings with her directly. Not because of scandal. Because of results. And for the first time, her name trended without controversy attached. Tonight's gala wasn't damage control. It was celebration. Expansion into global markets. Media cameras lined the entrance. Reporters called out questions as executives stepped onto the red carpet. Min-hyuk exited first. As expected. Impeccable black tuxedo. Composed. Unshakable. But he didn't move forward. He turned. And extended his hand. Danielle stepped out of the car. Deep emerald gown. Elegant. Powerful. Effortless. Not as someone behind him. Not as someone following. As someone arriving beside him. The cameras noticed immediately. Flashbulbs intensified. Ms. Carter. Over here. Are you and CEO Min-hyuk? Is the partnership personal as well as professional? Min-hyuk didn't silence them. He didn't shield her. He didn't redirect attention. He simply looked at her. Waiting. Giving her the floor. Danielle smiled calmly. Our partnership is built on trust, she said smoothly. In business. And in life. No hesitation. No apology. The statement was simple. But it carried weight. Inside the ballroom, executives whispered, but not cruelly. Curiously. Respectfully. The shift was undeniable. They weren't a scandal anymore. They were a power pair. Later in the evening, the chairman approached them. Older. Observant. You've proven us wrong, he admitted quietly to Danielle. She met his gaze evenly. I didn't come here to prove anyone wrong. I came to build something right. Min-hyuk glanced at her with quiet admiration. That was the difference. She didn't fight for recognition. She commanded it. When Min-hyuk stepped onto the stage to address the guests, the room fell silent. He spoke about growth, vision, global expansion. Then he paused. His gaze found Danielle in the crowd. In leadership, he said steadily, I once believed strength meant control. A subtle shift in the audience. But I've learned that true strength is partnership. His voice softened, but didn't waver. This company stands where it is today because I stopped trying to lead alone. Every eye followed his gaze to her. And instead of embarrassment, she felt pride. He extended his hand toward her from the stage. Not summoning. Inviting. The room watched as she walked up beside him. No rushing. No nerves. Just certainty. He didn't place an arm around her waist. Didn't pull her close possessively. He simply stood next to her. Equal height. Equal presence. Equal light. A reporter later asked, CEO Min-hyuk, last year there were rumors about losing control. Any comment? A faint smile touched his lips.
You look incredible.
The room
Not
leaned
as
in.
incredible as you.
I no longer try to control what makes me human. A quiet murmur of approval spread. He turned slightly toward Danielle, voice softer, meant for her, but heard by all. I once told you I couldn't control myself around you. Her eyes warmed. And now? She asked gently. Now I don't want to. The room laughed lightly, but the intimacy in his tone was unmistakable. She reached for his hand. Publicly. Intentionally. Not hidden behind podiums. Not concealed in hallways. And this time, there were no consequences waiting. No board ultimatum. No resignation letters. Just two leaders who chose each other without surrendering themselves. Later, on the balcony overlooking the city, away from cameras and applause, they stood quietly. The skyline shimmered beneath them. Do you regret it? She asked softly. Restructuring the board? Defying tradition? Changing the system? He looked at her. The woman who walked away rather than compete with his empire. The woman who built her own rather than lean on his. The woman who forced him to evolve. No, he said. Why? Because everything changed the moment I stopped fearing losing control. He brushed a loose strand of hair from her face. Gentle. Intentional. You were never the distraction, he added quietly. You were the transformation. Her breath caught slightly. And you, she said, finally stopped fighting yourself. He leaned closer, not for display. For closeness. I can't control myself around you, he murmured again. She smiled softly. You don't have to. This time, when he kissed her, it wasn't rebellion. It wasn't desperation. It wasn't breaking rules. It was balance. And beneath the city lights, with no one to impress and nothing left to prove, they stood not as billionaire and secretary, but as equals. And everything changed.